All right, it is 11 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I know that we will have several that will come on in the next few minutes, but we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to this week's Purdue at Westgate webinar series. My name is Samantha Nelson, and I'm the program manager for Purdue at Westgate at the Westgate Academy. We at Purdue at Westgate strive to promote business and talent growth, and we want to help support you as a startup, small business, or academia. We strive to be that regional hub of connection and support. Purdue at Westgate is located directly outside of the Naval Support Activity Center, Crane, Indiana. So today I'm excited to be hosting this webinar/forum. Today's forum's mission is to help support long-term community investments that strengthen national innovation and expand the capabilities of the manufacturing industrial ecosystem. I have had the pleasure of working with the two presenters today. Andy Alexander, who has been a familiar face on these webinars, is a certified government contracting assistant specialist and a certified procurement professional who is under the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. And also co-presenting today is Susan Carlock. Susan is the Vice President of Business Development and co-owner at Mersix Corporation, and also is president of Pivot Manufacturing, which is a 100% women-owned business. So we ask you today that you mute your microphones, and you certainly can leave your video on if you choose to. If you have questions during the course of the presentation, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen or top of the screen, and we will answer them as soon as the presentation concludes. This webinar/forum will be recorded, and the presentation as well as the recording will be sent to you following this event. So with no further ado, I would like to hand it over to Andy Alexander.
Well, good morning. I'm broadcasting live from the famous Westgate Academy here in Olden, Indiana, outside the gates of the Navy Surface Warfare Center in Crane. And Samantha, again, thank you very much for organizing this forum. We've had about 5 of them so far this year. And I'm drawn to this facility constantly because of the rooms, the internet, the activities and events, and the closeness to the naval station down here. It's something for everyone to consider. For those who don't maybe recognize me with the beard, this is Winter Andy. I do grow the beard. I look a little younger probably without it during the summer, but it's still me. I want to welcome everybody on board. Looks like we have over 40 businesses. And the forum was developed with the assistance of the Indiana Procurement Technical Assistance Program, which I work for as a state employee under the IEDC, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. And let's go to the next slide, and we'll take a look at it real quick. This is the mission of the PTAC. I've been affiliated with it as a counselor for 16 years. I have over 50 years experience with the federal government as a soldier, a college professor, as a businessman, and now as a counselor. I love the PTAC program. I think it's the best thing going nationwide with over 500 counselors working in 92 different programs, including the small islands, Puerto Rico, with the Lesser Antilles. Next slide. These are some of the free counseling services that we provide to Indiana-based businesses. If you're a business that's here from another state and trying to open an office, whatever, we'll work with you, but we will bring in our counterpart from the state that you're registered with the Secretary of State of that respective state. These are no cost counseling that comes to you on government contracting, whether it's town, city, county, state, or federal. Next slide. Here in Indiana, we have 6 regions. I cover the 22 counties or 245 towns in South Central Indiana, and my counterparts are throughout the other 5 areas. Next slide. We've created the Indiana Manufacturing Forum mainly out of the guidance and mentorship we've got with Johnny Good over at MSP Aviation, with Decatur Mold down in North Vernon, and several other manufacturers that came to the PTAC and said, is there anything we can do to win more government contracts from the 240 military installations worldwide and the other 2,000 federal agencies that are looking for manufacturers, not just on defense contracting, but for all areas for manufacturing. And we said, well, we'll set up an informal forum. As a counselor, I'll facilitate it. and are moderated and research information for it and track our success. And so far, we're doing pretty good. And just my area alone, with the goal of about 35 million in government contracting, we're at 69 million year to date. We got another 2 months to go. So congratulations coming out of our manufacturers. Next slide. These are some of our supporters as I've gone through this. Being a prior ranger, I've learned not to do things by myself, but to work as a team, as a coalition. And you can see through here with IN3, the IDC itself above me, the Westgate here Academy, the MEP out of Purdue University, especially with cybersecurity, the Ivy Tech community colleges, the Indiana Defense Network. Next slide, please. Up in Indianapolis, the defense manufacturing community itself out of DC, the IDN, and the Metro Manufacturing Alliance out of New Albany with the One Southern, the Northeast Indiana Defense Industry. And I say a lot for the IMA. At first, I wasn't sure about what they did. Now I do. And they are a big advocate. And I do condone their membership and their events and the support that they do provide to Indiana businesses for manufacturing. So that's something to consider. Next slide. These are 12 quick steps that I'm going to go over that you should all consider in manufacturing if you want to do work with the government, town, city, county, state, or federal. And I've got this heavy on federal. But first of all, you got to classify your codes. You got to conduct market research. You got to develop a list of target customers. You got to register on the federal SAM system, you get a cage code. You want to get your free bid notices for manufacturing through our the PTAC. You want to make sure that you're marketing yourself on the virtual highway with the dynamic small business search. Next slide, please. You want to register with DLA with the what's called the DIB system. That's where a lot of the parts and nomenclatured items with national stock numbers are. You can even have one created for your product in that. You want to register and get your joint certification with DLA and get into the C folders, number 9 there on all the drawings and specs and things. You want to complete your CUI for cybersecurity to get ready for the future to protect a lot of the work that you're going to be working with. You want to attend these government industry days. They're all over the country, but GSA puts out about the best event list that I've seen. And you want to develop relationships by facilitating capability briefings. Have a solid capability statement, 1 page that you put on your website, that you market back to these governments to let them know that you're in the marketplace. And then how did they do that? It's similar to the old product line card they used to use. But now they put you on a vendor's interested listing up in the cloud within these contracting office. Federal government loan with 16 departments. Federal government, not the loan, but the federal government has over 16 different departments under 3 branches of service with 2,000 federal agencies and 7,000 contracting officers. We got to have some focus here on who we're looking at, how we're approaching them, and using these 12 steps. Myself and my counterparts throughout the states are all familiar with these 12 steps, and we're a great resource for you to use. The next slide. At this time, and we're a little early here, so what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker today, who prior to this, I met on one of the panels we did here at the Indiana Manufacturing Day. I thought very important that we have one of our own peer Hoosier-owned companies, and she has 2, and that's a woman-owned small business, and share with her experience as a manufacturer here in the state. And over the next 30 minutes or so, I'd like for you all to listen to what Susan has to say. Afterwards, I'll close out the briefing on some other ideas that I have about this forum, and then we'll take some Q&As and we'll wrap up by noon. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Susan Murray Carlock, Vice President of Business Development for Mercer Corporation up in Yorktown, Indiana. And I'll turn it over to you at this time, Susan. Thank you very much today.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy. And gosh, Thanks and gratitude to you and the PTAC team and Sam at Purdue at Westgate for allowing me to share my journey and experiences in manufacturing with you all today. While I know I can learn much from every one of you on this call today, I hope to leave you with a takeaway or two telling you about my journey. So I want to start a little bit by telling you why I'm here and how I found personal and professional growth by facing fear and adversity head on. About 4 years ago, I was asked to be a keynote speaker for the Women in Manufacturing Summit here in Indianapolis, where I addressed over 400 women. And, you know, I put myself out there to say yes to things that were going to challenge me for personal growth and professional growth. So I faced this challenge definitely with excitement, but definitely much nervousness. Nervousness mostly because I was afraid of public speaking. To be very simple, I don't think everybody's comfortable with it. But it wasn't just public speaking that I feared. It was also the fear of failure, the what ifs. And I centered my talk around a quote that had been on a paperweight on my desk since I joined my family's manufacturing business about 13 years ago. And the quote is, "Never let the fear of striking out get in your way." And you may recognize this quote by the Sultan of SWAT, better known as Babe Ruth. Many of you might already know this about Babe Ruth, but for those who don't, let me give you a few facts. And Sam, you've got the slide up, so we're good there. In 1923, Babe Ruth broke the record for the most home runs in a single season, 60. That same year, he also broke the record for the highest batting average. He also held the lifetime total home run record of 714 for 39 years until Hank Aaron broke it in 1974. There's another important record that he broke that year that most people don't know about. Babe Ruth struck out more times than any other player in Major League Baseball. So Babe Ruth was not afraid to strike out, and it was this fearlessness that contributed to his remarkable career. So with this fearless Babe Ruth in mind, I want to talk about addressing fear, adversity, and challenges, and how I made sure, again, in my career to put myself in uncertain situations and uncharted waters. Why? So that I could grow and in turn help my company grow. Change the slide, please. So first, I got to tell you a little bit about my family's manufacturing company. MER6, our last name is Murray. There were 6 of us, 4 siblings and mom and dad, so MER6. We employ about 175 people, and we're a progressive die builder and stamper. Our capabilities also include plastic injection and overmolding, CNC machining, and many other value-added services such as staking, potting, riveting, welding, and plating, all under one roof here in Yorktown, which is a town bordering the city of Muncie. We believe all of these capabilities make us unique and competitive in being able to offer quality products at a lower price. My father bought the company back in 1990 and moved the family from Carmel, Indiana to Muncie, but I stayed behind to finish college and where I practiced as an ER nurse for years. Being one of 4 siblings and the only girl, I never really saw how a nurse, even a woman at the time, could fit into manufacturing. But after years of trying to convince me to join, I finally caved in when my brother, who's our CEO, called me with an offer I didn't feel like I could refuse. I joined the business to work on our benefit plan designs and start a health and wellness program. And not really knowing anything about the business, I felt like I just had to jump in and learn and got the program up and running, engaging our associates in exercise, nutrition, tobacco cessation, and really increasing the awareness of overall good health. I was also able to work with our insurance broker to design a benefit package that helped to drive down our healthcare costs, recognizing our ROI in 3 years. And over the past 5 years, we've had locked in premiums, even negotiating a 5.5% premium decrease over the last 2 years. So that transition from being the director of HR and working in more of the healthcare type world took me to business development. I was evolving with the company, understanding more and more about it. And so about 5-6 years ago, I plunged myself in front of customers to build relationships, to negotiate new business and pricing, and basically exposed myself to as many people in the industry to absorb as much as I could. I learned much about marketing. I learned about how our company and how critical it was to our company not to try and grow by word of mouth only, but rather to put yourself out there and talk about your company. Our company never had anyone really doing this or being paid for it, paid much attention to their website, or even sell their services by marketing it themselves. So I truly believe that's critical in increasing your exposure and increasing that win rate, if you will. Being a little overwhelmed how quickly my role was changing within the company, I was eager to know all I could to understand how to grow it. Along the way, with every challenge I met, which were plenty for many reasons, one, being a woman, two, not knowing the technical speak as much of manufacturing, I'd say to myself, never let the fear of striking out get in your way. Change the slide, please. So I'll tell you a little story, a couple stories today. Before the COVID pandemic, I received a call from a colleague in software development who knew just enough about the defense world to be dangerous. He asked me if I'd be interested in pursuing a $250,000 grant from the Air Force Research Lab, I'll call it the AFRL, and the IEDC, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, working on a digital thread project for the aerospace and defense supply chain. I honestly knew nothing about manufacturing in these sectors and had to go and look up what the term digital thread even meant. So we went for it and presented our project proposal to a room full of defense and public sector people, along with 4 other companies. And we and 2 other companies out of the 5 total won the full grant amount. So the journey has begun. And I'll just get a little briefing on what the digital thread is. Many of you may know it's the future. It's where we're all going to have to go to maintain our competitiveness. It sounds worse than what it is, but basically, and I'll read this description, it's advanced modeling and simulation tools that link materials, design, processing, and manufacturing, being the game changer that provides the agility and adaptability needed for rapid deployment and development, while also reducing risk. So utilizing a digital thread approach in the defense industry enables integration of all material pedigrees and manufacturing data at the component level. It enables the use of this data for improved quality control and near real-time quality decisions. So there's full transparency throughout the product life cycle. It enables use of the data for management decisions to reduce sustainment and support costs, and it reduces the risks and facilitates implementation of new materials and processes. Could you change the slide, please? So our team was Team Top Gun, was what we named ourselves. Our mission, if you will, was to provide a framework that would strengthen the domestic manufacturing supply base between the SMMs, which is the small to mid-sized manufacturers, and the OEMs. Also to increase the capacity, strengthen efficiencies, and improve product quality. And 3, provide next level workforce development and just-in-time education for 21st century digital manufacturing. Next level, as you know, is the governor's on his agenda and in his budget, next level roads, next level jobs. There's a lot of ways that the governor is working with us and all of the manufacturers in Indiana on training grants and for workforce development and other initiatives that he's been incredibly supportive of. So for that, I truly am grateful. We have been the recipient of a couple of training grants so far and other initiatives from the IEDC. So if you haven't reached out to the IEDC yet as a small to mid-sized business owner, I would highly recommend you. They have many benefits. Change the slide, please. So from the AFRL and the IEDC's goals, Team Top Gun's project had 4 goals for an enhanced digital thread ecosystem based on what the IEDC and AFRL's goals were. So improved collaboration between the SMM and the OEM, and I'll go into that a little bit more. Improved learning for workforce individuals, enterprises, and the region, which includes Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, and improved delivery of needed information across the product lifecycle. So we used the HUD analogy, the heads-up display. There needs to be access to the information at the right time. In other words, full transparency again throughout the product life cycle from the SMM to the OEM. And then an improved framework for the standardization of the digital thread. How is this standardized and practiced the same by all small to mid-sized manufacturers and OEMs? So from this, the AFRL can further build on this project's model to build a reliable and sustained base of manufacturing partners that can easily scale. So obviously this project, outside of the money, was transformational for our company and frankly for me. I had to dive in and learn what I just said yes to, of course. And I was surrounded by the brain power that I had chosen to team with in Cummins, Purdue, ICTT, Systems Science. And it was that very team that enabled me to learn about this important yet challenging topic and how it could affect our business and help us enter the aerospace and defense supply chain. But more importantly, was what I learned where we in MERSIX could fit in a project like this and how it would change the future of our business. So now that this digital thread project is complete, I am fortunate enough to continue my alliance with the Indiana Defense Network and the AFRL. And we have some goals that we've been working on and in focus groups. If you'll change the slide, please. So our goals are to reshore supply chains or bring back or establish to increase defense industrial base performance. Simplify access to the defense marketplace to increase risk transparency and lower barriers for SMMs to work with OEMs and or the DoD. Reimagine collaboration to accelerate transformation of the supply chain. So really looking at new ways of partnering. Facilitating regionalization to strengthen regional alignment and bring the supply chain closer to the OEM or the prime, and to accelerate supply chain digitization to enable the supply chain. So adapting Industry 4.0, which is the best of all of our interest in manufacturing, and the technologies that are necessary to maintain our competitiveness. Change the slide, please. So there are very real challenges that exist, aren't so simple, and to address or fix. And what we as a country are facing includes a critical shortage of spare component production capacity for aging weapons, maintaining sufficient surge production components to meet unanticipated national and I would say international needs, modernizing the small to mid-sized manufacturing systems, increasing productivity of the SMM supply base, and adopting commercial production practices. Another thought about this challenge from both the SMM and the OEM's perspectives, the SMMs have their reasons for joining an ecosystem, whatever that ecosystem is. That includes expanded market access for existing offerings, so new sales channels, strengthening their core business through complements, tapping revenue pools adjacent to their core business, launching new ventures, and protecting the core business by diversification, especially through tough economic times. Next slide, please. But the OEMs have a different perspective, and some of their challenges and perceptions are that the SMMs really just need to come and find us. We don't have time to find them. It's time consuming, expensive to onboard a new supplier. There's no incentive in it for me. And this is straight out of some of our primes' mouths in these working groups is really what they're saying. SMMs have difficulty navigating the FAR 12 and the 15 document requirements. We don't have time to help them with that. Their level of automation and technology and lead times can be prohibitive. I knew I'd mess up a word. That's the one, prohibitive. The SMM's level of engineering and quality needs to be robust. So I hear a lot of the primes and OEMs say that the SMMs aren't keeping up with the latest level of engineering needed, technologies, and even their quality management systems aren't up to snuff. So for example, next slide, please. The barriers and challenges for the SMMs, you all can name what they are. I know my first thing that when I was asked is, I don't know how. I have no idea how to navigate this territory. And who do I know? Where do I start? Well, luckily, I was fortunate to meet Andy, and that's been a wonderful, wonderful start for us. The incentives for the primes to bring on the SMMs just aren't there. They're not held accountable to go out and find new suppliers. They've got the ones they go to. We have our go-tos. That's what I hear. A lack of resources, and I think this is one of the biggest challenges small to mid-sized manufacturers make or have, and that is the money and the human capital, both of it. So where do we find the people that can get out of these four walls and go out and find these opportunities and understand and learn this business? And it's a challenge right now. And navigating SAM.gov and DIBS, you can't just dive into it and do it without help. It's nearly impossible to understand it. This process sounds so simple. A business or a person has an idea. The idea should equal business. It does equal business. DoD, you become DoD procurement ready, you become contract ready, you get a major contract, and now you're part of a major defense acquisition program. That's the dream, that's the goal. But it all adds up, and all of this equals time and money. And the average cost of time and money, I've seen a couple different figures, but the time, around 18 months of time to get there, $148,000 to $160,000 with a less than 10% win rate. So your keys to success have to be building an ecosystem that decreases the friction, our keys to success, with the help of the PTACs and the IDNs and the IEDCs, building that ecosystem that decreases the friction in the defense marketplace, which dramatically increases the SMM, should increase the SMM participation by increasing the win. And we need to do so quickly. Looking at my time here, Andy, to make sure. Okay. Change the slide, please. So we're attempting through these focus groups to solve the very real challenge of the lack of suppliers to the defense and aerospace sectors. And I think these are interesting statistics. 100 primes do 70% of the work. We're losing up to 35% of small to mid-sized manufacturers annually. 70% of sub-tier twos are sourced outside of the US. And this one slays me. 80% of machining companies in the region employ 20 or fewer people. So when I go back to what I was talking about with the resources, having the resources, these companies that have 20 or fewer employees, I guarantee you, they're running the books, they're running the machines, they're mopping the floor. How are they going to get out there and navigate this and bring on new business? So very real challenges. And I know the governor's goal and what Major General Tooley, who was formerly with the IDN and IEDC, are focused on is improving the probability of the SMM win. And this also includes the goal, and this is straight out of Major General Tooley's mouth, the goal of onboarding 500,000 small to mid-sized manufacturers in the next 7 years. That's a bit lofty goal, but that's what's necessary to meet the needs of what we're the defense and aerospace supply chain need. So I'll end that. And out of our success through this digital thread project, I was fortunate to form my 100% women-owned company, as Sam had said, Pivot Manufacturing. Pivot is a rapid prototype and engineering design consulting business. So forming this company for me was strategic for two reasons. Supplier diversity spend from tier ones and OEMs, right? And there are contracts out there specifically for women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned. We all know this, right? And so leverage that for that reason. And then two, Mercix, my family's company, was outsourcing all of their prototypes, not incurring any of the revenue here. But Mercix doesn't meet any supplier diversity requirement. My stake is only 25%. So I thought I could help be a part of the solution to the shortage of SMMs by starting a women-owned business and investing in the capital that's necessary, marketing it to the aerospace and defense sectors, usually lower volume. Mercix is a high volume production facility. So the competencies, the capabilities are there, the quality and the standards are there, and the passion's there. So I'll go on just a little bit before I change the next slide, and I probably have 5-10 more minutes. But working with the PTAC, it's opening up my world to understanding how to talk the talk and walk the walk. There are definitely specific steps to take from knowing and understanding this defense market space, its rules, its culture, its language, and prospects. So demonstrating your ability to fulfill contacts and getting out there and exposing yourself and your company to get your first win is paramount to your success. I can honestly say our greatest exposure was coming from winning the grant and taking every introduction and meeting I could possibly get from that network. So my advice is to get out there, pound the pavement, expose your capabilities, talk about your company, talk the talk and walk the walk. So I'll shift a bit here and talk about another opportunity that arose out of the onset of the pandemic for us. While COVID was on like Donkey Kong and spreading throughout the world, and our automotive lines were going down as China went down, Europe went down, North America went down. It was a shocking reality that our company may, at the very least, have to start laying people off. But the other reality was, would our company even survive? And I think there's probably most on this call that have had that feeling over the last couple of years, or at least at the onset. Next slide, please. So this is when author Jim Collins' Stockdale Paradox from his book Good to Great kicked in. And I don't know how many of you read that. I see Ryan, the smile. I know many of you are current military or veterans, and first, thank you very much for your service. And I realize I'm not an expert on this, but let me explain the analogy. The Stockdale Paradox is named after Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was a U.S. military officer held for captive for 8 years during the Vietnam War. He was tortured more than 20 times by his captors and never had much reason to believe he would survive the prison camp and someday get to return home to see his wife again. Collins popularized this concept of balancing realism and optimism in a dire situation as a key to success. Stockdale never doubted not only that he would get out, but also that he would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of his life, which he says in retrospect, he would never trade. The optimists without the balance of reality were the ones who didn't make it out, and they failed to confront the reality of their situation. So during the onset of the pandemic, again, I believe that my brother and I responded with what Collins describes as a powerful psychological duality. And what I mean by that is, on the one hand, we stoically accepted the brutal facts of the reality. It was mind-numbing. It was awful, all of us, right? We understand what we all went through. But on the other hand, we maintained an unwavering faith in the end game and a commitment to prevail as a great company, despite the enormous challenges that were ahead. So on Sunday, March 22nd, 2020, a day in my life I will never forget, pacing my living room on 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, figuring out what the hell are we going to do to survive? How can we play a role? I'm a nurse. I could go back to the ER. It's right down the street, but I need to save the jobs of almost 200 people. So I called a sales guy up in Michigan that I know, and I said, what are you doing in the PPE space? And next thing you know, he sends me a drawing of a face shield. We prototyped it that day. By the next day, we had our first order of 10,000 face shields from a hospital system in Michigan. As the weeks went on, we produced millions of face shields and sent them around the country by volunteer pilots. That was a really cool time in our company. We were able to hire 300 temporary workers, and we were donated 2 warehouses for them to produce the face shields from 24/7. So it was a really cool time in this company's life. It proved our agility, our flexibility, and our ability to pivot on the spot, which spun out Pivot Manufacturing, which gave us a powerful feeling of being really good at this, right? And as Collins explains, and what I believe our company committed to was to accept the reality, commit to being resilient, and develop a plan to live to fight another day. Real quick, I want to talk about the manufacturing readiness grants. If you would change the next slide, please, that through Connexus and the IEDC. So both Pivot and MRSIX have received grants, and I'd highly encourage all of you to apply if you haven't yet, and I am happy to help in any way. I do sit on the committee that reviews the grants and makes the recommendations. I was exempt from MRSIX and Pivots, of course. The governor established these grants in 2020 with a $2 million budget. In 2021, he received approval for an additional $20 million in funding over the state's 2-year budget cycle. So they're heavily invested in this program. That means they're heavily invested in manufacturers in Indiana. They're a 1-to-1 match with awards up to $200,000. And so the bigger the project and the more advanced technology, we're really not recommending you try and apply for software, the more likelihood of the full award. So some of these projects include process automation, cobots, advanced robotics, 3D printing, vision systems, autonomous mobile robots, our AI, artificial intelligence and ML, machine learning, and augmented virtual or mixed reality. We're seeing all of that. People are investing in their businesses to maintain their competitiveness. And I believe the program will continue to receive funding for years due to its current success. So please, again, take advantage of it. I will definitely answer any questions. I put the website on this for you to look at too. And Andy, if you want to put my website or my email address on there, or I can after I'm finished, I'm happy for anybody to reach out.
Right.
Yeah, we've been members of Connexus for about 10 years, and I recently moved into a new position as the vice chair of the Advanced Manufacturing Council. So it's a nonprofit and acts as a conduit for industry, academia, and the public sector to help identify challenges and create opportunities in advanced manufacturing and logistics. Their membership continues to grow year over year, and they're over 140 members right now. And they work to advance industry via 4.0 technologies, cultivating talent, and connecting leaders and companies. Again, as much as Andy was talking about the IMA, I'm also saying Connexus is up there and helping industry partners. Yeah, it's opened up opportunities to learn from others in industry and networking exposure. Next slide, please. So in wrapping up, I definitely want to stress a few pearls of wisdom that I've learned on my journey to growth. And then when facing any new challenge, I really think it's important to understand your why. Why do I want to do this? Why do you want to do what you're doing? And whether it be entering new markets and understanding if it's a good fit for you or a bad fit for you. Will you add value? Will you receive value? And is this something you can even do? That's probably the first question you need to ask yourself. Find a mentor and surround yourself with people that are better versed than you. This project taught me that I don't need to know everything. And that's the next step. I don't need to be the subject matter expert. Speak from your place and to what you know. Face fear and adversity by going toe to toe with people. Strike a balance between assertiveness and aggressiveness. They may puff their chest, but know who you are and what you can do for them. And know your why. Every time, go back to it. Take feedback constructively. You are not perfect, and you should always seek to learn and be better. And be vulnerable. Be willing to be transparent. This opens you up for new opportunities. You support and you promote and you inspire others, and that is incredibly important. It's paramount to the continued growth and success of an organization and its individuals to put oneself in a position of making an impact. You live life with intention and brevity and practice humility and empathy. And there's a saying that every leader needs 3 types of bones. Next slide, please. And I love this. Every leader needs a funny bone to keep your perspective in a healthy place, right? If we can't laugh at ourselves and the things that happen in life, then we're probably taking things a little too seriously. A wishbone. It's always good because we need to keep our dreams alive and hope for a bright future. And our people count on us for that. And a backbone. There are times where we must stand up for what we believe in, and this will require that backbone to make the right decisions. And it's not always the fun and easy decisions that need to be made. And lastly, always be curious. Ask a lot of questions. So these are the things I've learned along the way, and the things that have allowed me to lose the fear I once had of putting myself out there. And I want to end with a few more things about the Sultan of SWAT that show failure can and will occur, but it's how you face adversity, challenge fear, and come out on the other side that counts. So when Babe Ruth retired, he had struck out more times than anyone else in Major League Baseball. That record was not broken for almost 30 years. And the guy who broke it, another person commonly considered one of the best of all time, Mickey Mantle. So you see, the home run king held the record for striking out for almost 30 years. And then his record was broken by another great slugger. Sluggers and home run hitters strike out a lot because they swing for the fences and they are fearless. So with that, I hope you took away something today of value and use it in your practice, in your business. Thank you, Andy and Sam, again for the opportunity.
Very good, Susan. Thank you, especially for the presentation. We're ahead here about 7 minutes. So what I'm going to do is take advantage of this. I've learned through all these participate events that I do, I always tell businesses, when you go to an event, you owe your owner, your boss, your supervisor, 3 things that you're going to put in effect when you go back. So sitting here, even as a PTAC counselor, I've learned some things that Susan has shared with me as an SMM. And that is, I come up with 10 things. So out of that 10, I got to pick 3 that I'm going to implement tomorrow. And these are impactful. Number 1, when I meet a business, I always try and come up with one word that represents that business. And with Susan's business, I think of the word engaged. She is engaged with her business and her outside forces that will affect it. She's very positive and she's a visionary at the same time. We love visions because we can come back where we're at and we can learn from those and we know where we're going. I like to go to a business like hers and I talk to the employees, and guess what? They all understand her vision and they know what their mission is. That impresses me versus employees that, oh, we don't know what's going on. We're a little confused right now. I don't think I find that in her business. I love the Babe Ruth analogy. I think that sets the stage. In the Army, they use the word hua. That means yes. There's no no's in the business. There's nothing that you can't produce or provide. Number 3 is emphasizing the business grants. You know that a lot of these grants aren't even executed or used sometimes. So the money gets de-obligated back. That's a waste. You should always be pressing to get grants to complement your business efforts. The ecosystems. I did one for myself. I'm not going to work. I can't work 22 counties by myself. So how am I going to do it? So 2 years ago, I created an ecosystem for my little business, and I was shocked to find that I had over 90 advocates out there to help me with my journey. But I had to go out and create my system. And I've used them ever since. And these are government service providers. Susan, thank you for your email for help. I think there's no greater advocate for anybody, mentor or protege, than a fellow peer manufacturer. There are SBLOs out there in these large corporations. They call themselves other than small businesses now. I guess they're hiding out from Bernie Sanders. I don't know, but they don't like to call themselves a large business. Well, they have small business liaison officers. And if you contact them with your capability statement, you then have the ability to market directly to them for their federal contracts that they have to build a subcontracting agreements using supplier diversity, minorities, different set-asides for women, Native American Indians, or whatever the 17 different categories that the SBA uses in those plans. They're called SBLOs. You can Google DLA SBLO for the guide, or you can do the SBA SBLOs. That's one of the first things that I advise businesses to get on the SBLO's interested vendors list. They have nothing to do with the government. They're just a larger business than you, but they've been on your journey. Connexus, I'm going to study Connexus more. I want to include them as a partner with these forums. I see the value of it now. I loved your supply-based statistics. General Tully was a fellow Ranger, so I know why he come up with 500,000. You know, Rangers have a problem with overachieving and setting high standards. So, and I worked for him, so I understand that. That is a great need, and we're going to have to look that way. Great PPE story. I have 4 other businesses in the state, manufacturers, that followed the same path during that time, that stood up and did the great American thing to help out our country. And then the pearls of wisdom bones analogy. I think everyone needs to have those. I was the aide to General Colin Powell in '83, and he had pearls of wisdom. And I have yet to forget about them to this day, like Boy Scout oaths and stuff that you learn, or Girl Scouts. You have to have core things that you stick to that represent your ethics, your values in your business. So with that in mind, I've taken this up to about 11:42. Susan, again, thank you for your presentation. I'm going to close out with 2 things here, Samantha. One will be to finish the slide information with the forum, to educate the followers of these forums every month. And then we'll open it up to look at what chats and Q&As we have. And that will happen in the next 17 minutes. All right, so we're on next slide. Today, the IMA is having a Manufacturers Hall of Fame. And the only manufacturer that I feel that's not in a Hall of Fame or recognized are those that don't get nominations. If you feel that you're in a position of being nominated, you need to tell me. Right now, I've asked over 160 businesses in my territory. If you feel you're the SBA Person of the Year or should be in some type of recognition for your business, you should do that. You want to be on LinkedIn, you need to come to me and tell me that. I will be your biggest advocate. So leverage things like that. I would be proud. I'll be at the next Manufacturers Hall of Fame next year because I just learned about this to be honoring one of my businesses up there, and I will assist in that nomination. I also read in that second bullet there, the SBA put out a big release that they have a 5-step program to help SBA. So I'm going to do a garage sale here this morning. Anyone that contacts me and wants to go through these 5 steps, to learn what is the SBA going to do to help my business be a better manufacturer, I will do a webinar like this, just the two of us, to go over these things and find out, is there any value here for your business? And so I'm throwing the gauntlet out there for anyone that wants to come after me. And we can do this together, because I want to learn about this, but I'm only as good as the manufacturer I'm working with to see their reaction to this. The next slide. So 7 October was National Manufacturing Day. And I think the way we recognize this in our state was kind of weak. The President of the United States wrote a whole declaration of it, for goodness sake. And I thought, wow, we completely missed this boat. We could have really leveraged this. And so next year, this is one of the things I'm putting on our schedule ahead of time on how we're going to do this and who we're going to recognize, and bring attention to who's your manufacturing throughout the world in that, so they know that we're here and we can do this. 1 November, the Indiana Sustainability Summit for Manufacturers is being held by IMA. You ought to check that out. I got the link there. 3 November, they got the Dealing with Global Labor Deficits. It may not affect everybody, but sometimes when you look at something else that someone's talking about or presenting, you'll get 3 ideas out of it for your own business. Now, 9 November, they're going to do a State of Indiana Manufacturing Regional Tour. This is by the IMA of the Honda Indiana up in my territory, Greensburg, and that'll be 10 to 1:30. So these tours are pretty good. And anyone that would like to do like what Susan did today with me, you need to talk to me, and you can be our future presenter. We can take a tour of your company. I'd love to do that and set that up with the IEDC. Next slide. All right, so at this time, we'll get into Q&As, and I'm going to take a look, open the chat up here. And it says from Sam Brown, Andy, this is Sam with the IDN. Would it be okay to share the link to Shark Tank competition with Susan referred to? Oh, absolutely. Just email that to me, and I will put out a personal email throughout my area and share it with my other 5 counterparts. Anytime we have good news about Hoosier businesses, we want to do that. Susan put on the chat her email. You can see it on there. Let's see, Johnny Good of MSP Aviation up in Bloomington. Thanks, Susan, for her work and the advantage of the grant. It's been a game changer for his organization. I've actually seen the equipment show up in his plant during his recent celebration. If you go to LinkedIn, you'll see MSP Aviation's results. I'm proud to have served with John and Johnny over the last 2.5 years and watching how they've evolved as a business. It's pretty exciting things. And that's a good example of a business where you ask the employees, what's going on here? They all have the shirts on, the hats. They all give me a story of what's going on. They have that visionary as well. So Johnny's done a good job at doing that. Sam Brown's given us the link, and he'll email it to me as well. And Solomon has asked that I ask my contact information. Mine's on the end, the last slide. But if you Google Andy Alexander, Indiana, you're going to get the whole history of Andy and how you can contact me and stuff like that. Because every time we do something like this, you know that you're publicized out there on Google or these search engines. A lot of people don't realize that, even though when you do enough of them, you're going to be on Wikipedia, I guess. All right, so now we'll open it up for questions. It's 11:48. We got about 12 minutes left. Anyone have any other questions in the chat, just unmute your mic and bring us to your attention. Otherwise, I will come after you. That's a terror.
Andy, I just have a.
Go ahead, Susan.
You know, I'm newer to this, right? And just an observation. First of all, thank you, and thank you for your feedback of my presentation. I wonder if in the future, if there's 5 minutes that we can go around and introduce ourselves and what we do. If there's time allotted, like there is today, possibly. I see new names that I've never seen, and I think, gosh, this is also a networking forum in a sense, right? And I always believe in understanding others' challenges and such. And so I don't know, maybe not so much today, but in the future, I don't know if that could be built in.
Sure. And I'll put that on the next forum, and we could probably do it up front, so everybody would know who's talking in that. So great idea. Let me look at some of these people that are on here.
Yeah, definitely, Susan. Thank you for sharing your experience. It was a great presentation, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Definitely, there is a big sense to keep up our Defense Council meeting, because it just got dropped from the times when Ryan Metzig was doing it. Really, there is not much activity. I think that we can all benefit from our internal capabilities and ability to share resources, ability to bring together. And one of the things that you said, Andrew and Susan, you're talking about a lot of companies that are 20 people and how they can handle all the government regulations, and it is true. But you also know that being one, we are weak. Being 10, we are stronger. Being 20, we're much stronger. Being 100, we can figure out how to deal with it. We can have certain functions that are being outsourced to a central place where you can just use these functions and use these services. We went through all that in my company. Just we had no choice, so we had to learn all these FARs and read them before you go to sleep, and you hope that you don't fall asleep with that, because it just keeps you awake. But not everyone can actually do that, and definitely providing some kind of a help, centralized search. So definitely it's very good what Indiana right now is doing, providing us the resources, not only to pay for the GovOps, but also to search over there. But these searches also are extremely cumbersome and extremely difficult, because you have really to know if the opportunity fits you or not. So thinking collectively, how we can make them more useful for us, how we can make them actually something that will translate to business. And 10%, it's not too bad, but it's not enough. For a small business, if you go for 10% success rate, you better scrape your pockets good. So we need a much better success rate. And all that, it's doable. It's just when you spend your time as a small business on the right opportunity, and don't waste your time on 2000s big ones that have nothing to do with you, you still have the same one employee that will have to read through this. And if he spends time on something that's irrelevant, okay. Another part of it is, we all talk about the big OEMs and how they have initiatives to get the small businesses, but maybe more has to be done, just even bringing us all together with the same Rolls Royces and Raytheons and many other OEMs that are in our state. I mean, I'm not talking about outstate, but if you look, and I don't know, somebody can probably dip into these numbers, how much work is being outsourced by them outside the state that can be done in the state. It will be a staggering number. You would never have to run to fight or look for something. You can provide this service right here in the state. So having an initiative, having some kind of body that can actually deal with the OEMs and can help the small businesses, that would be of extreme benefit to everyone. And this will help actually to fulfill this goal that we have. Because today, as you know from the Department of Defense, copy and paste is the easiest thing to do. So why do they need a new supplier? Nothing is wrong with the one in China. They send it. But then tomorrow, when there will be no China and they cannot get it, everyone is running like crazy. So why not prepare today? They all like the 3D printing today, and it's a great technology. It's excellent, fantastic. But what is the cost barrier for a small manufacturer to enter in the 3D printing world? It's staggering. Because it doesn't matter what you buy today, tomorrow it's already irrelevant. It's already next generation. So you're already outdated. So all these things, they have to be thought through very well. And how you apply all this to the small businesses, it's very, very important. So thank you. I didn't want to take too much time, but this
Solomon, thank you for your comments. Just before I turn this back over to our host, IBC Materials and Technologies, where are you located in Indiana?
We are in Lebanon, Indiana.
In Lebanon, okay. Well, Samantha, at this time, I'll turn this back to you. Thank you very much for hosting us today.
And Andrew, I will be glad if we can catch up after this meeting.
Okay.
Good. Well, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Andy and Susan. I agree with Andy. The Connexus Readiness Grants is obviously something that's a great opportunity for everyone to check out. I know Susan had said in the comment or in the chat function that she'd be more than happy to talk to you about it, because I know she's gone through it, done it, and knows the ins and outs. So I encourage you to reach out to her. The Pearls of Wisdom were amazing. Obviously, they could affect life situation and work situation. So the great advice to look upon. And the analogies and stories, very, very relevant and obviously resonated with a lot of people and a lot of things that are happening right now today. So I thank you for that presentation. And also, we met Susan, like Andy had said, through the Indiana Manufacturing Day that we held here at Westgate Academy. We asked her to be on a panel. So we met her then and there, and now she's on this roadshow tour. So we'll hope to hear from her and see from her more. So again, thank you both for being here. Please reach out to either one of them. They will be more than happy to act as a mentor, to provide advice. They're very knowledgeable people. So go on westgate-academy.com if you want to see our past and future events. So there are different events like this, and we do hold in-person events as well. So please check those out. So this recording of this presentation and these slides will also be sent to everyone that is RSVP'd. So please look for that in your email. So we hope you enjoyed the presentation today. I don't know where you are, but it's chilly here where I am. So I hope you keep warm today and have a great rest of the week. Thank you again, Andy and Susan.
All right. Peace out. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.